Hello, I'm Adam Chamberlain. I'm going to talk about my critical analysis of my sound production of my summative assessment 1. Firstly, I'm going to start with the planning of my sound design. Firstly, I started with the time-coded sheet of every diegetic sound I saw on screen, every action I saw, every movement I thought was necessary to have a sound. I wrote it down in time-coded sheet for the basis of my sound design, and then once I had all that sorted, and I picked from there which I could get sourced and which I could do recorded myself, and that's where after that would be the creativity and visuality of using recording techniques to get non-diegetic sounds as well. Adding like extra spot effects and extra sounds or repeating sounds in the background that you won't see on screen, but it will add you into the environment. That's what I wanted to plan. I wanted to plan that it was a POV, like the viewer, you would be the protagonist in this short film, and I thought if I added all these sounds, it would make it an environment where the viewer would experience what the protagonist was feeling. So talking about my recording next, I used multiple techniques. I used a stereo recorder and a mono recorder. I'm going to say that maybe I didn't use them to the best of their potential, using mono recording for music, which is music having a high dynamic range of sound. It would have been better for me to use a stereo recorder, but I used a mono recorder, and this is just because I didn't have enough time with the stereo recorder when I actually made the sounds, and it was just easier for me to get my hands on the mono recorder. I already used a stereo recorder, and I already give it back when I had lent it out from uni. And I had my own mono recorder, the Blue Ice Ball. I added my own experimentation with my recording. I attempted my own recordings of adding a little bit of what would this sound like if I could do it myself. So as an example, I did the heartbeat, which I put a wet flannel on my collarbone, and the wet sound of the flannel made almost like a fleshy wet sound as I beated it on my collarbone. It made a heartbeat sound, and that was my experimentation with a bit of Foley work, a bit of thinking outside the box. How would I make a heartbeat? And then I wanted to record sounds that resembled some of my inspiration. I wanted to research into how a sound designer that I look up to, or of that particular genre. So I looked into Stanley Kubrick, because he does thriller and suspense kind of films, which is exactly what Falling Down is. It's a thriller and a suspenseful film, and I wanted to bring how he, as a legendary sound designer, director, filmmaker, how he brought this upon the viewers, how he made them feel the suspense. And as I just spoke over it, I attempted my own recording of music, how Stanley Kubrick, he used Eastern European composers of his time to record orchestrated musicals over the top of his films, and his sound design was very on beat, and it brought a very intense and suspenseful feel to the film. And that's what I tried to do with the build-up at the end of how I saw it and envisioned how all these build-up of sounds and all these musical recordings that I'd done, if I just layered them on top of each other, it would bring almost like an annoyance to the viewer. Like they don't want to hear that sound, but it builds pressure on them and makes it more intense. And that comes on to my next point of editing these sounds. Layering them up, this is a problem I came across, and it was unfortunate that it threw me off my plan a little, how layering the sound upon sound, it slowed my workflow. And in my editing tutorial, I showed how the video was started to become a little bit corrupted, or the computer itself tried to eliminate as much processing power as possible by lowering the quality of my production while I was editing it, which made it hard because it was jumping my sounds around and I wasn't able to assemble my sounds on top of each other. I did try to attempt add more sounds into it, which unfortunately it came to the point where I missed out one of the diegetic sounds, which was the manual window lever. I did record a sound, but every time I attempted to put that sound into my sound design, it would crash my Mac. So I ended up leaving that out for the sake of keep my work a reasonable level without it. Also editing it, I edited a lot of it in Premiere rather than in Audition straight away. I added my reverb surround sound. I added an effect called In the Church. That was what resembled to me more like a reality of a tunnel that I could find out of the other custom settings, that presets that In the Church sounded to me as it was like in a tunnel, had that echo and reverb and long tails, and a bit of reflection. I also put a few effects, as in low passes and keyframing those sounds, bringing them, leveling them up and down as they come in and out of shot. Low passing being on the children's footsteps that I mentioned in my editing video. But I was looking back on my work, I wish I did attempt more effects. I wanted to add a little bit more to my sound design. I wanted to add some effects, add some special eerie noises into it. But when I brought it into Audition, I was inexperienced enough to play about with the effects. I could have researched into it, and I would have, if I picked my feet off the floor, I could have actually looked into making a few more effects and bringing my work level that little bit higher. But I'm very pleased with my editing. And then taking it into Audition, I panned the sounds around from how I explained before. I wanted the viewer to be a POV position of the protagonist. I wanted him, the viewer, to feel like you're in his shoes. So I panned the sounds around, and I tried to make it not from camera angle, but I tried to pan the sounds where the position of the protagonist. I did sometimes work with the camera, but that was only because it didn't fit with the POV of the character. So it just contrasted better with the camera, and it sounded better. Overall, I think I'm very pleased with my sound design. I'm very, very pleased. I just wish I had researched a little bit more into my effects and how I could work with the sounds that I created. But overall, I think it's a good piece. Thank you.